Hello and welcome to the Anne and Phelim Scoop. And before we start our show with our special guest, Elisha Krauss, we have a short announcement to make. As you know, we take accuracy and integrity very seriously here at the Anne and Phelim Scoop. So we would like to start today's show with an apology. We would like to sincerely and abjectly apologise to the government of China for anything critical we may have said about China or its government. We would also like to apologise for anything critical any of our journalistic colleagues may have said or will say in the future about China.
We recognise that China is doing a difficult job restoring order in a part of its country, and further we recognise that our negative thought about this and the negative comments and thoughts of our journalistic colleagues were either, in the words of LeBron James, either misinformed or not really educated on the situation. We would also like to add that, in the words of LeBron James, we regret that so many people could have been harmed, not only financially, but physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
Further, as Irish people, we recognise that small islands next to large, powerful countries have much to learn and nothing to fear from their neighbours. We would like to remind the people of Hong Kong that apart from religious oppression, a few famines and military massacres, the Irish experience of British forces restoring order has always been hugely beneficial for the Irish people.
So again, we would like to reiterate our apology for anything negative we might have said about China, or we might say about China in the future, or anything any of our colleagues have said or might say about China going forward. Thank you. I think that was okay, Phelim. I think it's pretty comprehensive. I think we've probably covered it there. I think we're probably okay.
Well, I mean, they've got very long memories. That's the problem. But anyway, I think huge, 1 billion people. If 10% of the Chinese
1%
population listen to our podcast,
we're sorted, Phelim.
And 10% is 100 million people.
Yeah, forget about the 50,000 that Joe Biden's son got every month. That'd be like serious money now.
Yeah. I mean, imagine if we sold 100 million people a LifeLock.
Imagine if they bought anything.
A LifeLock subscription, right?
Oh yeah,
got them sponsor, and they were all.
I think we're good.
You think so?
I mean,
what would those? We could sell them mattresses too. Apparently, there's all these people. My Pillow.
That's it.
We could sell them all the pillows. A lot of pillows in China. Hello and welcome to the Anne and Phelim Scoop.
Hi, I'm Anne McElhenney.
And I'm Phelim McAleer, and we're joined today, as we promised, by our very special guest, Elisha Krauss. Elisha is a broadcaster, podcaster, mom, rent the runway ambassador.
Yes, we were talking about that. I'm usually always wearing Rent the Runway, but today I'm not. I'm wearing a TJ Maxx Fine and a 7-year-old Forever 21 denim jacket. So you gotta mix and match.
I love it.
And we were telepathic apparently in our color coordination.
Well, I just think it's just so you know, like hours are spent coordinating these colors. You know, your people, our people spoke to other people's people, and none of this happens by accident. Just so you know, we're so happy to have Elisha.
And I'm wearing
a
slightly gay pink shirt.
Nothing wrong with that.
No.
It's like lavender-y.
Yeah, it's a lavender-y thing.
It's
very broadcasty.
I actually think, is he colorblind? Because we had a moment where he thought my newest baby was a boy, and Magda and I were like, she's in all pink and in polka dots.
Yeah, which part of this do you not get, Phelim?
I just don't gender stereotype.
Oh yeah, okay, very good. All right.
So what are we talking about today, Anne? Remind me.
We've got lots of news. First of all, actually, I think the most important news is to remember that, so this week, Phelim was back up in San Francisco covering the David Daleiden trial, which you've been watching yourself, Elisha, I know, very closely. Quite an extraordinary story.
Amazing.
Give us the highlights of what happened this week, Phelim.
To summarise what the David Daleiden trial is, David Daleiden is a undercover activist and journalist, and he would be, that would be the description he have. He's both activist and journalist, and he was up there. He went undercover into Planned Parenthood clinics, other places across the United States, conferences, dangling large sums of money in front of abortion providers and asking them to sell them body parts from aborted babies.
And the nice thing about, not that there's anything nice about that, but when people try to say, oh, those were highly edited or he kind of entrapped those people, the thing about what David did is he released them in full.
Yeah.
So if you, I don't know how you can have a heart and watch it and not be affected by it. But if you can bear to, it is all out there. All of the evidence is available to the public.
So the judge in this trial, so Planned Parenthood, interesting enough, Planned Parenthood are now suing David in San Francisco, and
under the RICO
fraud, breach of contract, breach of privacy. Now, one thing they're not suing him for is slander or libel,
defamation.
Or defamation.
Yeah, guess what? Because the one defense,
fascinating.
Because the one defense of defamation is absolute truth,
and they don't want to defend the absolute truth. And the judge, whose wife has had associations with Planned Parenthood in the past, has basically banned much of what he actually recorded from being aired to the jury.
Yeah.
So
it's mainly based on the interviews of the people and the experts that they're bringing in.
Yes,
correct?
Yes. So however, luckily one of David's defenses one of David's defenses is you can tape someone without their permission in California if you are going to stop a violent felony, right? David then has evidence of them agreeing to commit violent felonies for money. The judge won't allow that to be broadcast because he says it's all about what was in your mind when you decided to start filming, not about. And this is the proof that he knew was there, and this is the proof. So then, what? Another defense of taping someone without their permission is that it was in a public place where a waiter was present, or an employee, or other members of the public. So luckily.
I feel like anytime you walk out of your house now, you expect to be on somebody's Twitter feed or something.
Yeah. You don't
whether you're an average person or not.
Yeah.
Like you are in public.
You don't have any.
You do not have any expectation of privacy.
It's interesting at the trial. One of the things they're doing is they're shutting. Anytime it gets to the details, they're shutting them down. And I think this brings us to something that you've spoken very well about. Is you did this incredible video for PragerU, I'm really glad you made that point because no one has made it before, and it's such a brilliant point. The fact that Europe, super progressive
Socialist Europe that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren praise,
wouldn't even dream of having the laws that are enacted here. Can you tell us more about that? Because I think I keep telling people this, and people don't know.
Yeah, people don't understand that in other parts of the country or other parts of the world, their abortion laws are, using the language of the left, are quote unquote more oppressive than here in the United States. And in the United States, we have more progressive abortion laws or lack of them. In some countries, in Eastern Europe specifically, in socialized countries, you have to have a waiting period. An adult woman has to have a waiting period before she's able to obtain an abortion. In other circumstances, they're asked to seek a doctor's kind of review and sometimes even a therapist or a psychological review before they are able to. And in some of the legislation too, and this PragerU video is 3 years old now. I think the title is something about European abortion laws, or the difference between, or the similarities
we'll put that
between
up
them.
On the Facebook page.
I'm like 20 pounds lighter in that video, so it was 2 kids in like 3 years ago. But one of the fascinating things is they recognize that this is a major medical situation for a woman's body. It ends a baby's life, and that there are going to be emotional implications and long time issues because of that. And I think that that's something that people, thank God for modern science, thank God for the innovation that earlier and earlier enables fantastic medical doctors and nurses and NICUs across this country to save babies at a younger and younger age. I mean, now if you hit 24 weeks, there's an 80% chance of survival in a NICU, and every day after that, the possibility of survival just drastically increases. And it's fascinating. We now see that full term in a baby is 37 weeks to 42 weeks. And if a baby makes it to 37 weeks, they don't need to spend time in NICU. Everything is fully developed and functional and fine. And I think that other nations are recognizing this, other nations see it, and other nations understand the ramifications of those decisions, and how it really is outrageous. I think the thing, especially as a mom of 3 girls, that is astonishing and appalling to me is the lack of parental rights, and how you have outlets like Teen Vogue telling young minors that not only if they're sexually active, which is horrifying to think of, like 12, 13, and 14-year-old girls, their target audience being sexually active when they are in such a time of emotional and hormonal turmoil. Like, you remember being a 12-year-old girl.
Crazy.
There was no way I would have, like, thank God I hadn't even kissed a boy then. Like, because there's so much and emotion and mental involved in that. So they're encouraging them to be sexually active and teaching them how to do that. But on top of it, they've had to kind of pull back a little bit, but not completely, on being like, oh, well, if you live in an abortion repressive state, here's how you can obtain an abortion without your parents' permission. Yeah. That is disgusting. You are enabling minors to make decisions life-altering decisions
I remember,
that they are not mentally and emotionally capable of making, and you're enabling them to go around their parents, and in doing so, that's horrifying.
I remember when we started making Gosnell, I was speaking to some guy in New York who is an advertising executive, and I was kind of a bit nervous telling him we were doing Gosnell because I assumed he would be pro-abortion and be, you know, all that. And he went on this rant, right? He went on this rant about how an abortion clinic is not a time machine.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And it was he said, you don't go in there and come out never having been pregnant.
Yeah, you can't
It's
reverse
not,
it. It's not a
it's
reversal.
not something that reverses what happened. It changes your future, but it doesn't change your past. And there's, you know, and when the Irish referendum happened, it was one of the biggest supporters for abortion in Ireland, admitted in a tell-all, you know, op-ed that she'd had 2 abortions, one when she was 20s and the second one in her 30s. And she said the second one in her 30s, it took her a year to get over it. And I'm going, it didn't take you a year. If you think it took you a year to get over it, you're still getting over it. You haven't got over it. You'll never get over it.
Yeah.
And I feel sorry for people who were told and who were led to believe, as we all were growing up, that this was some kind of
that it's no big deal.
No big deal. In fact, funny you should say the words "no big deal" because Deborah Nucatola, who was one of the David Daleiden's most talkative Planned Parenthood operatives, she's the one who was sipping the wine, saying, "See, if you crush just above the thorax, you get really good hearts and lungs. Have a glass of wine." And she was eating salad. I mean, it was.
And that's why they don't want that video to be shown.
Well, funny, the problem with that video, so they managed to get it into court because waiters were coming in as this, and they were able to say, we need to show the jury that she was saying these outrageous things whilst and not lowering her voice and not going quiet.
The people at the table next to her could hear.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it was very clear. Yeah. And she never, she made no effort to say we can't talk about this right now.
During the hearing, you know, her life was changed by this video. It was terrible. It was terrible. It was terrible. And then they produced a email she sent in the days after, a couple of emails she sent in the days after the video was released, where she said to friends, "Yeah, I saw the video. It's no big deal. It's no big deal." She didn't say it was badly edited or, she was in there in the court crying, saying it had ruined her life. But she's on record as saying no big deal, and that's the line. No, this is no big deal.
And that was immediately after an event, not along the same lines, but I was just listening to the Dax Shepard podcast with Monica Lewinsky, and October's anti-bullying month, and so she's going out there and doing a lot of interviews, and she talks about like the trauma of things. And that one of the traumas that she experiences, of course, like the national embarrassment. And you would think that this woman would have been nationally embarrassed by her behavior, demeanor, actions, and words on camera. And yet in the days after, usually when most normal people are very introspective and, shamed, she was proud of it and thought it was no big deal. I think that speaks a lot to her psyche.
Yeah, we'll show.
And the fact that...
Let's just see that video now so people can see... make up their own minds whether this person should have been embarrassed
or whether this is actually no big deal.
Or it's no big deal.
Or it's no big deal.
A lot of people want attack parts these days because they're looking for specific nodes. AB nodes, SA. I was like, wow, I didn't even know. Good for them. Yesterday was the first time she said people wanted love. And then, like I said, always as many attack livers as possible. People just want
livers.
Some people want lower extremities too, which that's simple. I mean, that's easy. I don't know what they're doing with it. I guess they want muscle.
Yeah, a dime a dozen. How much of a difference can that actually make if you know what's expected or what we need versus.
It makes a huge difference. I'd say a lot of people want liver, and for that reason, most providers will do this case under ultrasound guidance, so they'll know where they're putting their forceps.
Actually, that video we're just seeing makes me believe that I think we live in parallel universes. I think there are people out there who, well, obviously in her community and her neighborhood and her friends, it's no big deal.
To end a human life.
But even to talk about, well, there's that, right? But then to talk about, literally with your glass of wine, saying, see, what we do is, if we really want that sample, we turn the baby into a breech, and then that means it can come out and the heart and lungs are intact. Now, this wine's lovely, isn't it? I'm exaggerating slightly, but you can see the video. That's what it is. And it's like Cecile Richards. Her abortion story, right? Because everyone has an abortion story.
Well, they want you to shout your abortion.
Yeah. So her story was that she was earning
happily
married, $1 million. She was earning $1 million a year. I don't know how much her husband was.
Her children were the centre of her life,
and she got
pregnant with the fourth. But it wasn't going to just suit her, so she just aborted that.
And you know who's going to have an issue with that? Her children.
Yeah, who are going to grow up and realize.
Her children are going to grow up and realize, wow, they're going to have survivor's guilt. I know women like this who were the only child or one of a few children and found out that their parents or their mom had an abortion, shouted their abortion, were proud of it. Yeah. And there's an element of bitterness towards the parents because they didn't want to be an only child and they feel all alone. Or there are situations where they have the survivor's guilt of the why me and why not them, because that's going to happen, and there will become an age where like the innocence of your children is over and they start to ask questions and they start to judge you based on your decisions. And dear God, I hope that I'm a good parent. Like when it rolls around to my 13-year-old asking me questions, but and I hate to bring children into this, but when public figures discuss that is going to be something that it is forever written. It is on the internet for your children to find.
She's proud of it though.
It's a funny old world actually, and I feel sorry for people who listen to that and think that it's no big deal because it is a big deal.
But you know what's fascinating? I recently spoke to an incredible pro-life organization in Missouri, and obviously that was a pro-life speech that I gave. Very pro-life, but I did read a lot of the language of the pro-abortion, the pro-choice side, and I did read a lot of the testimonials, I guess you would say, of the women who had gotten abortions. And something that was increasingly obvious and heartbreaking to me is even in the women that were saying, oh, I'm proud to have done this, it all went back to them feeling alone and them wanting a community. And so I think that's something that the pro-life movement has done in some areas. There's incredible small pro-life organizations. I mean, there's more crisis pregnancy centers in the United States than there are abortion clinics, thank God. There are places where people can go get actual mammograms and STD testing and counseling, et cetera, and things that Planned Parenthood does not provide or claims that they provide, that are actually life-focused and life-centered. Thank God for those places. But I think that the pro-life movement needs to, in our discussion of saving these innocent babies, also reach out to these women that are in desperate need for community, that are in desperate need for a purpose and a future, and seeing kind of past this, what they think is a negative life-altering thing, but it can be an incredibly life-altering thing. And I like to say, I actually really, I don't want to use the word hate because as a Christian, I feel like I shouldn't be hateful towards anyone.
Don't go hating there, Elisha.
But I really do hate that their side has made women feel as if this is a curse, when truly being able to create, grow, and sustain life, now having done it 3 times, as a 33-year-old woman, I think is the ultimate superpower that men cannot do, that women, once we reach a certain age, we cannot do. There is this window of time and opportunity in which you know, you are given this incredible blessing, and it is a blessing, and it is a freaking superpower, and they are taking that away from women, and they're saying you can't have it all and you can't do it all. And I don't understand or agree with it from the people that are supposed to be yes all women and proponents of women.
I think that's a great point. I love the frickin' superpower idea. I think that's great, you know, and it's particularly when we're living in times where it's like, well, everything's the same, and we're all gender fluid, and really I'm identifying as this or that. No, you know what? Don't go identifying, because it won't make any difference how much you identify.
Yep.
You're not having a baby anytime soon.
Yep.
You know, it's incredible. I wanted to ask you about, you know, because you're talking about your children, you're talking about, you know, these crazy laws that exist. How do you feel about living in California? I mean, we have a segment in this
Los
podcast
Angeles,
every time, which is called Crazy California, where we tell a story about how crazy the laws are here. And, you know, you're living here and trying to bring up children in a, you know, in a beautiful home and a beautiful family. And it's challenging. I know Magda's got a baby as well. And, you know, we're going to be looking at things like schooling and what's going to happen, you know. And when you hear the stuff that's going on in schools with gender fluidity and all of that. And I know you yourself, you were homeschooled.
I was homeschooled all 12
Are you
years.
hoping to what are your thoughts about Crazy California and the future for you with your children and all of that?
I think that in some ways I'm hopeful, because recent polling shows that a majority of California voters across party lines, and specifically minority women, are supportive of school choice. And I think that this is something that, and I say this all the time, the California GOP needs to take it and run with it. Because, and it's even funny that AOC earlier today was saying, you know, my family moved to Westchester because my education was determined by my zip code. And I'm like, that is literally a school choice argument.
Yeah. That's an advertisement.
And if a socialist like her and Elizabeth Warren can essentially say what I have been saying for years of how wrong is it that a child's education is determined solely by their zip code, that's something that we need to take and run with here in this state. It is horrifying, though. I don't send my children to public school because of some of the stuff that is in curriculum now, as young as kindergarten. We are very active in our church and in our family, and have a close community of friends. And my oldest is 6, so she asks some questions, but not tons. We don't discuss politics. I don't play the news or podcasts, around them, because there is a level of like wanting them to keep that age of innocence.
Yes.
Growing up, I was homeschooled, but I traveled a lot. My dad worked for an American Airlines, so I got to fly around the country, meet all different kinds of people. Our girls get to do the same, and I think that that's an important part of their education. Is even though we live in LA, which has amazing museums and cultures and opportunities, I want them to see where I'm from in Podunk, Oklahoma. Yeah. I want them to see where their dad is from in Detroit. I want them to see our military family and all that stuff, so that they really have a perspective and an understanding of like, LA is not the center of the universe. And I think lots of people, even especially because LA is such a transplant city, like you'll go out to dinner in West Hollywood and you'll meet people and they just think that they're so much better than people in Texas because they live in LA. But you find out they're from Ohio.
Yes.
You know?
Not
knocking Ohio, but I'm just saying, like, people here, and New York is the same thing. I lived in New York for 7 years of my adult life as well, in New York City, and it's like they have this, the coasts kind of have this persona of they are better than the middle of the country, but most of the people that are in the, these coastal cities actually are from the middle of the country. Yeah. And I think that if I can teach our girls, and if we can teach our girls to just be grounded and have good work ethic and just be nice. Yeah. Just being kind to each other. This is why I so appreciated like the Ellen video. I think that her Netflix stand-up special was great. Obviously, I disagree with her on a host of political issues, but it was nice to be able to just watch her special and laugh. And I appreciated the video that she released and how she addressed sitting and laughing with George W. Bush at the football game, because it's like, if Americans can't sit together from both sides of the political aisle and enjoy a football game, what have we become? And so I think that that's how we try to raise our girls. And I think part of the reason we've chosen to be in LA, and I think it'll make them stronger women one day, is that they are in the minority, being in the Christian conservative household. And I want them to be like, I want it to be iron sharpening iron in that way for them, and that they won't run away from problems but face them head on. I don't even know if that answered your question.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you know,
these are like my parental goals.
You were going to talk to Phelim was going to mention today, like in our Crazy California segment, the fact that, you know, this law that there is here that has really enabled the homeless population to become
It's
like
heartbreaking.
out of control.
Jones Act,
The Jones Act.
that decision in Iowa or Idaho or whatever, basically where you're not allowed to move people on now. You're not allowed to you know, and it's not, everyone's saying, oh, it's increasing inequality and all. It's not. I mean, there was an actual court decision and a court settlement by the city of Los Angeles to agree, we can't move homeless people on. And then they raised $1.6 billion to spend on the homeless, and shockingly, they're spending $1.6 billion on a problem, and the problem has got worse.
Yeah, and it's going to take them.
So they throw all this money and all these people and all these services at so-called homeless people, and more of them have come. And
in addition to that, it's something like, I think here in the LA City Council vote specifically, it's that $1.6 billion. It's going to take a decade to build, and it breaks down to over $700,000 per apartment.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're building the apartments one block from the beach here in Venice, you know, that's going to be an expensive
Another
piece
thing
of real
too
estate.
that I think is really repressive towards, I'm going to say it, a working mom in the state of California, working women in the state of California. This idiot Gavin Newsome just passed that, you know, signed the legislation that lots of people were focusing on with freelancers, or like, oh yay, Lyft and Uber drivers are going to be protected now as full-time employees. You know who it negatively affects? People with a side hustle.
yes,
It's especially journalists, and you have mainstream media journalists, like probably half the staff at the LA Times right now, that are trying to figure out what does this mean for them, because they're only allotted 36 articles a year.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that. And they're the one group that's been excluded in this side hustle business, right?
But I mean, what about mommy bloggers and entrepreneurs and people like college students that are trying to get in to journalism or anything else? I mean, it affects freelancers, I think, as a whole in the state, but once again, it just goes to show that the bigger the government gets, the more people it's going to end up rolling over, because it's just a bad decision as a whole, and they don't think about the individuality of it.
It's
and
going
how
to get
impact
impossible
people.
to live and work in LA.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing, you know, when we were younger, people used to go to New York and they used to go to LA and they used to go to London, and
Concrete jungle where dreams are made of.
yes,
I mean, it's like that's
but
what,
they could afford to live there because the housing was cheap, and that was the biggest expense. But then, you know, the boomers got older, and, you know, do not build apartments in my backyard is basically, you know, you cannot build apartments, you cannot build here, you can't build here. Dublin, literally, you can go on a Friday to the protest to protect the homeless, on Saturday the protest to stop the 400 houses being built, and no one thinks there's any connection
it's
there.
not in my backyard.
Yeah, and so we now have this situation where, you know, where millennials cannot make a living in a city. They cannot go to a city and
we have a
follow their
housing
dreams.
crisis as a whole here in
Yes.
specifically in Los Angeles, where they will knock down a house to build an apartment building because you have 30-year-olds that are living together, because one, the affordability, and two, the lack of housing.
Well, you're not allowed to build apartments here.
Yeah.
Though. Now they're not allowed.
I'm not even allowed to. My husband and I want to buy an Airstream, and we've been looking. I know it's so hipster.
Can I just say, I just love the idea of owning an Airstream. And tell us what's happening with that, because I think people would be really interested to hear that, because I love the idea.
We are definitely considering it. We have some property back home in Oklahoma. We'd like to put it on and rent, because part of the reason we'd have to put it in Oklahoma is because California is so repressive against people in their 30s with children who would like to stay here and invest in the state.
Yep.
Being successful.
Yes.
We have 15,000 square foot lot, which is very large for LA. I could totally put a 20-foot Airstream on my property.
And you're not allowed.
Self-sustained, Airbnb it out.
Sure.
Not allowed.
So is there any Airbnb in your area? Is it the whole area doesn't have it? Because we don't have it. So here,
the
Venice
city of
had it.
LA is very restrictive. So you guys in Venice did
I think
more.
they've
They've just got rid of it here in Venice. They've also got rid of it in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's a disaster.
But also,
for
I'm
people.
just kind of like, I have an 8-foot fence. If I put an Airstream on my property, whether I'm renting it or not, why do you have the right? I have no neighborhood watch. Like, I get the people that live in fancy country club neighborhoods, and they have the rules about how your flags need to be lit and your flower beds need to be perfect and all that stuff. I don't live in one of those
Yes.
neighborhoods. Like, we have a fence up for a reason.
Yes.
Like, we want privacy, and our neighbors aren't
I'm
the greatest.
obsessed now with this Airstream. Are you going to? I just have to let me get a couple of facts here.
Yeah.
Are you going to be the people who buy one of those ones that's really in like really bad shape, and then your husband's like one of those super talented guys?
He is
who's
super
gonna-
talented, and
Yeah, my
he's-
husband's not. So
he's-
your husband, which on making things Phelim, like does he can do woodwork?
Well,
and
he
things?
can make. Your husband can make movies. My husband can fix up a house. You know, like,
Yes.
so there's
so on a
different
day-
skills
so on
there.
a day-to-day basis, you've got a very useful husband there.
Just pretend I'm not here.
So he's like, so he could do that. So you're going to get one of the rundown ones and do
Yeah,
it all
we're
up.
thinking of like starting with the shell
I love
and
it.
kind of seeing how much we can do on our
Oh,
own.
I love it.
But we have, I almost don't want to give it away, but we have come across some really incredibly talented people that can do a lot of the work, and it's not as bad as we think. But then you come across these people, like there's these guys in Utah. If you buy a shell for like 20 grand, they have made like $100,000 Airstreams because
yeah.
they put in all walnut and stainless steel, and it's like you can get real expensive real quick.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that. We want something that we can take up and down the coast with the kids, you know, like bring into a national park.
So are you one of those people, like as a couple, are you a
Mm-hmm.
little bit addicted to the HG? Are you a HGTV family? Just admit
No,
it
we
now.
cut the cable cord over a year ago.
You cut the cable.
Yeah, we pay for Hulu and Netflix, obviously. I mean,
And what was your? How was it? Just getting
Yeah.
into the domestic here now.
Yeah.
How did that decision come around? The cutting
we were
the
just
cable?
like, we don't,
You got
it's a
tired
waste
it.
of money.
It's a waste
It's
of
over
money, yeah.
$100 a month. It's a waste
an
of
awful
money.
lot of
We
money.
don't really watch it. And now, and actually I read a really interesting article. Netflix is trying to really dig into the children's content because they know that this big bad Disney app is coming along that I will probably also be forced to buy so
Yeah.
I can have access to all the Disney movies
Yeah.
that are coming out of the vault finally.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan of Disney, but we also joke now that like there's going to be so many apps that you have to purchase
Yes.
in order to get the content that you want that it's going to be like a
You're
cable
going to be back
package
to the
again.
$100
You're already
anyway.
back to $100 a month.
Yeah, but we don't like that. One of the things I don't like about that whole package is that you're buying into stuff that you really don't want to buy into.
Yes.
And they should be like, they should really
I wanna
get
be
in
able
on
to
the
pick and choose.
Yeah,
So
I want to
we
get in
wanted
the
to be able
opt-out
to-
of MSNBC clause quickly, you know.
But my husband, thank God, like, and no, nothing wrong with guys that are super into sports, but I'm glad he's not like addicted to them because we have some people like
I'm
that,
very
and
lucky.
it's
My
like a
husband-
couple thing. It's
My
like,
husband doesn't know anything much
Oh.
about sports either. We don't do that watching
This is-
sports
He-
the weekends thing.
Welcome to the Alan Film Scoop, where we just dump on film.
By the way, Phelim, it's not like it's unusual. It's like, you know, we have that weird thing, right, where there's
Yes.
Magda and ourselves, right,
Yes.
before Yvonne joined us. And it was very funny because, like Yvonne comes along and we're sort of explaining, well, you know, here's something that you should know about us as a company. You know that thing where they say, whatever you do, don't ever work for a couple? Here's what you need to understand about us. It's always Magda and I against Phelim. He's always on his own. And it's just turning out the same way this
I'm an
morning.
oppressed minority.
You are.
You're literally like my husband. I mean, the only thing he had is this why you're so into your cats because like they're your only support system.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
surrounded by
Yes.
women that just
I
knock you on the
can be
time.
the alpha male
Yeah.
with the cats.
That-
Yes,
that
'cause
they will listen to
They
you.
will listen because they know who feeds them and they know who cleans them.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Cleans the litter.
There you
He
go.
does.
You know,
He does.
so,
He does
so,
clean the litter,
all right,
it's true.
boys. Yeah.
But
No, but we
all
had
of our
this whole-
girls
so we had this
do
whole
become
thing.
daddy's girls. So like in their harassment of you, it really is in love. I think.
Is in love.
Yeah, it's their when they harass you, it's in love. Like they are only
I'm
making.
not even sure now about that. I think it's just ganging up, really, you know? Yeah. And it's like I finish Magda's sentences more than I finish my husband's sentences.
Really?
It's a bit sad, actually. There's something kind of a little creepy about it, maybe, you know?
I think though that sometimes there's that about female relationships. That female friendship is very unique because there are so many similarities that you can kind of like pick up on.
That's true. I
on
actually
things
feel
like that.
sorry for men that they don't have the kind of relationships that women can have, actually.
But in some ways, men can. Men do talk. I know we're not letting you talk, but men do talk a lot. I think.
I think they talk a lot about stuff that isn't about themselves. Like they don't talk about.
They don't talk about their feelings.
They don't talk about their
and
feelings.
How they looked in
Whereas
the mirror
girls,
and they want to change all
girls
these things.
tend to really, really like talking a lot about their feelings, about the fact they feel about everything. I think that's.
Thank God there's memes for this too. Like I use
Luckily.
GIFs and memes in all of my friendships.
Yeah,
like how are you feeling today? And I like get a meme or a GIF back. Like we can communicate in those ways. But I will say, at least my husband is this way. Like once he goes deep, like loyal for life.
Oh yeah.
Where
Phelim
I
is the same.
think that
Phelim is the
sometimes
same.
women we can go deep really quick, and maybe we should have like judged that person a little bit more on the front end. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like
but I
sometimes
actually
we can open up a little bit too much, and then
I think I inherited a skill from my mother. My mother was one of those people who we ran a B&B and people would come and book in and my mother would come into the kitchen and go, there's something I don't like about him.
Yeah.
And every time she was right. And I have to say, Phelim will back me up on this, that I've said something not right there. And there's been something
You've good
not
discernment.
right.
Yeah, good gut instinct.
Yeah,
you
where
know.
there's something just where you get a bad feeling. But my mother was unbelievable about it. I mean,
My mom is really good at that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, so your
really-
mother would say, don't quite like
not-
him, and then 3 hours later he's up there beating
his wife to death or whatever.
Yes,
yeah. Yeah.
Or,
Oh, no,
or
we
trying
had
to
that.
sneak out without paying the next morning.
Yeah,
or
well, I
something
have to
like
say, my favourite story of Airbnb, the best story ever was like, we had a guest staying and Mum had said, not sure about him. And I had been out that night. My
Yeah.
mum and dad slept in a different house, basically, when we had the B&B. And I was sort of in the kitchen looking to see if there was any food. Next thing I hear, the row has started upstairs. And I went down to the bottom of the stairs and they're starting to move out, right, without paying. Because back in the day, the money came at the end, not at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Of course, very sensible, took the money off them immediately. But I stood at the bottom of the stairs and I was only like, 15 or something. And I went, checking out, are we? I've got the bill made up for you, kind of thing. And then when my mother got up in the morning, I said to her, look at me, I got the money. So yeah,
You're like, aren't you glad I went out last night, Mom?
yeah, exactly. You see, stop giving out about me going out late at night. You
Yeah.
know, that's right, exactly.
Let's divert from that. I got you your money.
That's right. Look at who's turned into the night watchman.
What am I supposed to do? I was a good girl. What am I supposed to do when my girls are 15 and they're like trying to go out at night?
Okay. That. By the way, you know what? I just think that
answer is no.
Can I just say that the answer is no? But then you're like, it doesn't work like that, though, Phelim. It doesn't work like that. And the problem is, you have that old thing of all my friends. You know, something.
I'll tell her to
something.
get new friends.
Yeah.
I don't know. The good news is our oldest is miscongeniality and everyone wants to be her friend. So my goal is that she'll be so cool that I can be like, bring the friends over to our house.
We're gonna read literature on Saturday night.
We're gonna read Jane Austen and the Bible.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But like,
That's gonna be a hit.
Let's do Sound of Music in our backyard. Like,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
like make that the cool place.
Oh, you all want to go out dancing? You know what? You guess what? My mom's got organised.
Yeah.
She's gonna have this whole disco thing in the back
just
garden.
to brainwash her that our house is really cool, and then she's so cool that all of the people go there. That's the goal. I don't know. My middle one, we'll see. She's going to be.
Well,
this
it's interesting,
troublemaker.
you know, with Magda's son, like we've already started talking about whether or not people would be going, thinking about college and stuff like that. And interestingly, recently,
Don't do college.
I know.
I'm a
I know.
dropout.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
It's
Don't do
unbelievable.
college.
So I just
Don't do college, folks.
don't do college. I just went recently to OSU, but
Which one?
Stillwater.
Oh, hey.
Yeah,
Well, I'm
yeah.
a boomer fan, but okay. You were in my state, so that's.
That's a typical thing, Phelim, by the way, that these Americans do. You say something about a city, and then they put in this word
Patriots.
like "Go Patriots" or whatever. We have no idea what that means.
Well,
so
no,
boomers
not go
are,
to Patriots. I don't like the
Yeah,
Patriots.
so boomers are what? What's now? They're
Boomer
what?
Sooner is Oklahoma University.
Yes, see,
They're
there
the
you go.
Sooners.
And Sooners what? Sooners is a football game, football match, football team.
Yeah, well, they have all sports, but they're
Oh,
really
all
good
of-
in football.
So are the boomers all the sports or just
Well, for under the Oklahoma University.
Oh, so it's like tennis as well? Are we boomers?
Yeah, like
Oh,
they
I
can,
didn't know that.
Yeah, so
Oh,
when you
whatever the
see
word
somebody
is.
like at LAX and they're in an OU hat or something, you say boomer, and they're supposed to say Sooner.
God.
And then
right.
OSU,
Yeah.
where you were in Stillwater, is actually a very good ag school, and they have a really good vet program there as well. And they do a lot to like save animals there. Like heaven forbid anything ever
Oh.
happens, go to OSU.
Oh,
They
I
have
think I know about them being an
incredible-
ag school. I think they said something about
but
that.
they're the Cowboys, and their cowboy has the big hat, the big orange hat.
Big
Right.
orange hat. Oh, I think I know that.
So
big
is it
orange
so
hat.
interesting? Anyway,
And I'm not even really into sports ball. It's just I grew up in the Bible Belt of Oklahoma where college football is like religion. So you go to church and then you go watch college football. That's just the way it is.
Well, we had an interesting fallout from that. So basically, before I went there, all the posters of me that were up there with this beautiful face, as you can see, right? They put fascist over my face. They wrote in OSU. Oh, yes.
So you
And then we had an interesting development afterwards.
Because
So
all college campuses are run by a minority of radical leftists. I guarantee you the majority of the students there, no offense, have no idea who you are and don't think you're a fascist.
100%.
But there is going to be a small group that are the loudest voices. This is what we see. I'm a part of the YAF, Young America's Foundation, like college campus speakers tour. And
That's what I was. I was on that.
Sorry, I'm sorry if I like took that.
Very
rant.
upsetting. Very upsetting.
Trying
yeah.
to didn't mean to segue for you, but and it is something that I hear so often that these kids are afraid to come out and see
Yeah.
people like me speak.
Yeah.
And I'm like little old me,
Little
like I'm
old
not
you.
I'm not like Sean Hannity or Ben Shapiro. Nobody knows who I am.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's
but
not
they're
true.
afraid to come out and see me speak because of who might see them. And they're like, oh yeah, we could fill up a room of people because they're just like-minded or they're just interested in hearing the other side.
Yeah.
But they're afraid to say anything or show up somewhere because of that small minority on campus that is incredibly loud.
Yes.
And so I'm like, okay, great. Let's just try to be louder. Let's just, because I really want to empower, especially young women, I think, to think for themselves, to educate themselves, and to, have experiences in college like that you're supposed to have of listening to
different ideas.
All different ideas and all different ideologies, and then being able to determine for yourself what you believe instead of having some professor ram it down your throat.
And it was interesting. They actually, one of the things I think that YAF do everywhere, I'm not sure if they, but they did it certainly at OSU, was to ask all the students to kind of rate me and to give it, like, to write a comment or whatever. And like the word,
You spoke 3 times.
I spoke 3 times, but there was one, like a number of kids who wrote and basically said it was really nice to hear somebody saying the stuff that I believe in or whatever.
Plus, you got a really good accent too.
Well,
so anything you
that's
say
right.
is going to be automatically more interesting than
That's
anything
right.
I say.
Yeah, and of course I ham it up once I get out of the city. This is not
Big, thick Irish accent.
Oh God, between us and all harm. But and then what happens? We're back here, and suddenly I started getting. We'd been getting these messages from people saying, "Oh, you've got this really. Have you seen your Wikipedia entry? Have you seen how you're described on Google?" So it turns out we're on Google, both of us on Google, as Irish fascists. So you didn't probably know you were sitting down with Irish fascists today, did you now?
I did not.
Yeah, so it's very interesting.
Have you
and
met
of course,
many Irish fascists?
I don't think so.
so it's very interesting. So the professor, or I think the people who invited me to OSU did an investigation to find out that this fascism entry on Wikipedia was, in fact, had come from an OSU IP. So,
of course.
Yeah, so somebody there who obviously had editing rights at Wikipedia had gone in and edited the thing. I believe it has been cleared up, I think, this morning. But yeah, an Irish fascist. And of course, like, there's a couple of...
What does that mean? I mean, are we back at like Protestant versus Catholic? Like,
Well, that
I
wasn't-
don't know.
that wasn't
It's
fascist.
A tyrant
I
who
know,
can
but-
also dance or something, right? Or sing a sad song. Is that it? Or poetry? I mean, the really sad part about this actually is the fact that fascism has such an awful history.
Of course.
Of millions and millions of deaths. And the
so
people,
does socialism.
So
does Nazism.
Yeah,
but
it's
they
like the word,
toss out.
It's a total, degradation of the word to be wasting it on this Irish fascist, apparently, because it hasn't killed anyone at all.
Yep.
Yet.
Yes.
By the way, I am living in Venice. Who knows what's going to be happening?
But they would their response would be like, well, you obviously don't care about women because of your stance on abortion.
Oh, that'd
You know
be
what
right.
I mean?
Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah,
so
yeah.
therefore, that
Yeah.
to them is evil enough. But it really
But no,
it
stops.
falls on deaf ears.
They call you these names to
Try to shut you down.
Shut you down, but also it avoids them thinking.
Of course.
I mean, that is important, that they will not, and it avoids them actually having to take on your arguments. And I don't know whether it's because they haven't thought through their arguments or they don't want to think through them. But it's great. If you call someone a racist, then you don't have to talk to them. You call someone a fascist, you don't have to talk to them.
This is what Ben says all the time. He's like, he wants to be able to have dialogues and discussions with people on the other side of the aisle. But if they're going to revert to like just name calling you at the top,
Yes.
Yes.
then they're not really open to dialogue
No.
and discussion. This is why it's laughable when they say that they're the tolerant side.
Yes.
When they are on the right side, because they start with the name calling before even knowing who you and I are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before even learning about us, right?
Yes.
Like sometimes it's funny to me when people, I didn't vote for Trump in 2016. I plan on voting for him in 2020. Like there's things that I disagree with the GOP on. There's tons of things I disagree with the DNC on. Like but I am a unique individual who turns out has my own brain.
Look at you.
And can make my own decisions. Other than when my husband tells me to do things, and I always do what he says, right?
Yes.
Because that's the narrative that they have. And people will look at my profile and they'll be like, worked for Hannity. I know how you feel.
Fascist.
Go back to
Fascist,
kissing Trump's,
Whatever, yeah.
Whatever.
Racist.
And I'm like, okay, fine. Did you not Google me? Like, did you
Yeah,
not
yeah.
see the complexities of who I am as a human being? And
No,
I'd like
no,
to have a
the last
conversation
thing
with
that-
you.
the last thing they want to do is get any complexity.
Any complexity
Yeah.
or any kind of
Because they don't want to
humanity.
humanize you.
Yeah, no, they
Yeah.
can't have you as a human being.
Well, you can't
because-
have any human being, by the way, voting for Trump. I mean, that's not
So,
possible.
so
at all.
you're now going to vote for Trump.
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
still not I'm not like a, yay, he can do no wrong person. But knowing what I know now, I will vote for him in 2020.
And what do you know now? I mean,
That he actually has governed more conservative than I ever expected, for sure. I think that some of the decisions that he's made, and I think some of the things where he just has left it be, has been good.
Yeah.
There's obviously still things that are problematic with him, but no person is perfect. And I think that this is actually the beauty of a lot of millennials and the generation after us, Gen Zers as well, as I see a hope for America's political future because we're not our parents' Republican Party. And as you saw in 2016 and even now in 2020 with the Tulsi versus Hillary thing and everything, there's a disruption of, I'm not going to do what the man tells me anymore on both sides of the aisle. And I see that as an opportunity for political change of my generation and the following generations, that we're not going to just toe the party line. We're not just going to let the swamp do, using Trump language, let the swamp do what the swamp does and not worship or adhere to the ideologies of every person that happens to have an R after their name. And I think that that is important. And I think that's really how the founders intended things to be. They wanted things to be on a localized, individual level to positively impact those little areas and not have it be like the president is not the end all be all. And this is what I tell friends on both sides of the aisle. I'm like, you can be horrified and worried about Trump, but turns out the executive branch, one, has too much power than the founders ever intended, and two, even with all the power that the executive branch has, it doesn't really affect you living here in Venice Beach.
It's shocking how little power the president has.
Exactly.
Especially when you come from a parliamentary democracy, which is really a parliamentary dictatorship. Like whatever Boris Johnson, if he has a majority in the House of Commons, if he wakes up tomorrow and says we're going to drive on the other side of the road to be more European, you can basically,
good idea.
Within 8 months he will push it through Parliament with his majority. You
can't do that here.
You can't do that.
And amazingly, a lot of the pro-life legislation that is saving babies and mothers everywhere across this country have been on the state level. It's not this federal thing. I don't know that Roe v. Wade will ever be overturned. I would hope that it is for the future.
I make a caveat with that people need to be careful to not be overturning Roe v. Wade too quickly, because then you have a situation where the people get to vote, and they got to vote in Ireland.
Yes,
and that should be a salutary lesson for everybody.
But Roe v. Wade still stands.
Yes,
and you have states like Oklahoma and Georgia and Mississippi and Texas that are making strides to protect life and protect women, and they are able to do that because of the way that our system works. And I'm totally fine with that, because that is people voting.
It's going to be very interesting, the future of abortion in America, because you're going to have all these states that are basically going to make it almost impossible to have an abortion. And then you're going to have these states like New York and California. And Vermont and all those places that are making it easier. And what's the future going to be? Is America going to go more pro-abortion or anti-abortion? I mean, it's a question. I have no answer to it. What will the future generations? Will it become so unfashionable, or will it?
I think it already is becoming unfashionable, and I think that that's why you are seeing their side become so much more radical and desperate in their attempts to keep it going. And to cover up the truth.
I'm segueing away because I'm conscious of the time here. So I want to ask.
I know we just keep talking. Sorry.
So I want to ask. I think we're going to have Elisha on again, right, guys? I think this is really nice, and we really want you to come back again. I want to ask you about your go-to dish, because we ask everyone two things. We ask them for a recipe that's their go-to thing that everyone in the house is like, oh, please make this for us. And I know you've got one, and I'm also going to then segue into asking you about a piece of art that means an awful lot to you. It's like a poem or a movie or a play or anything like that.
Okay.
But first of all, let's do the recipe. So what is your go-to recipe?
I am not. My husband is the chef of the family, and he is a fantastic grill master.
Nice.
And so a lot of meals, we're very like meat and veggie family, so we don't often do potatoes, but these are the potatoes au gratin that my kids like rave about and love.
Wow.
And it's like, it's more of a, when you guys come over for dinner, everybody should come over for dinner.
We're coming
to
over,
the Krauss
no doubt
house
about
for some grilling. It's a good thing. I will make these, and they will like. There's an actor friend of my husband's who's like over 6 feet tall. I think he ate like an entire oval dish of them once. I was like, oh, I should have made 2 batches of that.
Oh yeah, he was like, it went on the table, and we're going to put up the photograph there.
And it's a bad photo. I just took it on Saturday night.
I thought it looked really nice. I was thinking, and he's looking at it and he's thinking, oh, this is for me. So what are you eating?
Yeah. And it's cheese and potatoes, so how can you go wrong?
You can never go wrong
and
with that.
So it's potatoes au gratin, and I found a recipe online somewhere, and I wish I could credit the lady, but I actually took her recipe and totally like, mother taught me. My mother is, sorry, Mom. My mom is not a chef. Like, she has some good recipes that she sticks to, but she would even say, like, she's not a good cook. Like, I think she's a good cook, but she kind of downplays her cooking. All that to say, She has always told me something that is incredibly true. You can never have enough garlic and enough butter.
Oh, isn't that it? Well, I'd be on the butter
And this
for
is one of
sure.
those, and I would add cheese.
And I would add cream.
So this is one of those recipes with the cream and the cheese, and you don't even have that much butter. Get yourself like a cheap little mandolin at TJ Maxx or Ross, because it saves you from slicing
Don't slice off your own finger. Be careful with that.
Yes, my husband has a little nick from a grate. Anyway, and it's easy. Toss it in the oven. You can grill. You can be making something else on the skillet. It is so good.
I can't agree with you more. I'm funny a little bit back on the garlic, but I have to say, you know, the French. We can say an awful lot bad about the French, obviously, clearly, you know, forever. You can't say anything wrong about them on the cream, on the cheese. On the full fat everything.
Also,
and this is a big thing, by the way, in this house. I have I go nuts, and we're going to do. I literally want to spend one whole podcast just talking about the evils of low fat things.
Oh,
because I spend forever in the supermarket trying to find full fat yogurt, which is gorgeous, and it's, you know, with no sugar.
I have a pediatrician who tells me, she's like, your children eat how most adults should eat. It's like meat and veggies. And thank God, she's not anti-red meat. She's like, it is so good for humans. And studies are now coming back to show that. Like
exactly.
egg yolk, not bad.
Yeah. How could an egg ever not be the right thing?
Like by the way, egg is like a pregnancy superfood. Like
it's like a superfood for everyone.
And so anyway, we could do a
and
whole
we have
thing.
this sort of, there's a kind of a sad thing here that Magda and us have had for all time, which is like this, basically the song to the egg, which is like, the egg, like the egg is like the best thing ever. It's like the most amazing thing. And once you have eggs and milk and cheese in the fridge, you can make a gourmet meal right there.
You
like,
can
no
make,
bother.
my husband will make crepes, pancakes, whatever. It's the best.
Yeah, we're coming to your house. There's no doubt about that. And Anna, maybe you hadn't had a chance to think about a piece of art. And in the meantime, maybe when you are thinking about
it's going to be a movie.
Okay, because I was going to mention a movie I saw. And while I'm talking about that, you can think about a movie you want to share. So I would recommend everyone, by the way, I just last night went to see Judy, and I would highly recommend it. You know, Renée Zellweger had that whole facelift, right? Where everyone kind of went,
Allegedly.
who the hell are you?
Allegedly.
No, who
She's
the hell are
denying
you?
it. She's denying
She was suddenly not Bridget Jones. People didn't recognize her and whatever. And I think she kind of fell off the wagon for a while, and people didn't see her for a while, right? But anyway, she's come back.
That's a mixed metaphor.
It is
falling
a
off
mixed
the wagon
metaphor.
to meet
But
someone else.
we're allowed to mix our metaphors. We're Irish, right? It's all very poetic. So basically, she's back with a vengeance in this film. She is unbelievable. It's really, really powerful. And for those of you who are, you know,
It's Judy. The film is Judy.
It's called Judy, and it's about the life of Judy Garland. And here's the thing, and if you don't know this, I mean, it's
The
unbelievable.
trailer, she looks just like her.
Do you know what? And I just tried this with Magda this morning, and it was interesting because I had exactly the same thought. Do you know what age she was when she died?
Judy Garland?
Yeah.
I think she was young, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was 47.
Oh, well, not that. Okay, so I'm not that
But like
old,
40, sorry, just for your knowledge, by the way, just for your information, 47 is very young.
It is.
And a lot of our listeners would know that.
Yeah.
It's incredibly young. Elisha mightn't understand that, but 47 is very, very young. She died at 47. So sad. And you should see in the film, like, you heard, she had little children.
Yeah.
Like she had all these marriages. I think in the end, maybe
and she
6
struggled
marriages.
having children as well, too, right? That was part of her.
Well, she had Liza with one, like number 3 or something, with Manelli, who then turned out to be gay. She actually married 2 men who turned out to be gay, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, incredible. But the movie, I really, really recommend the movie.
Yeah.
And it's very sad. And you know what it made me think? One of the things it made me think was, and we have had this conversation loads of times, Phelim, how it is that it is legal to have children in movies at all. How it's even possibly legal. And I know obviously nowadays they take great care of them. Allegedly, right? Allegedly.
You mean like child actors?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, because, well, obviously this is what happened to her. She was dead because of it. But her own mother, by the way, and it makes me think about, her mother was appalling. She had an appalling mother. Her mother was a failed vaudeville, act.
The stage mom living vicariously through her child.
And had her on, give her drugs from the age of 10. Was giving her drugs
for
from the age
her
of
weight,
10.
amphetamines to keep her weight down.
You know, and then there's a whole part in it, and it's actually quite interesting, Phelim, because I thought you'd find this interesting as well. So with the whole Weinstein thing and everything, Louis B. Mayer basically, and the movie kind of suggests, more than suggests it, they don't show much, but basically the suggestion is that he was her Weinstein and that he abused her. But I think he was probably the least of it. You know, people didn't let her eat. They didn't let her. She worked 18-hour days. Then she couldn't sleep. Then they gave her sleeping pills.
Traumatizing. Then
they had this. I mean, it's a really, really sad, but I highly recommend it. It's one of those performances. It's got Oscar written all over it. I was quite surprised. I looked at the box office mojo today, and it's surprising to me, and I don't really have an explanation. It's been out about nearly a month now.
It's not doing well.
It's 19 million, you know, for a movie like that. Have you thought of a movie that you wanted to share?
Yeah,
that you'd recommend?
There's actually 2, and they're family friendly: Swiss Family Robinson and Sound of Music.
Oh,
Like incredible classics. How can you not love Julie Andrews? I
I
mean,
love that. And she's just got a new book out, by the way.
and now we've gone 2 years in a row, and I would highly recommend it. Like I would tell people not in LA to come to LA for this event. There's a sing along of the Sound of Music at the Hollywood Bowl.
I want to go.
And it's once a year, and it's incredible. And like the cheap seats are $20,
I
so
want
it's
to
not
go.
too bad.
Do we know when this is?
It just happened. It's always in September. It's towards the end of the bowl season.
I
Come
guess
with us next year
I'll
because
come
we're
next
going.
year.
And we
Totally.
bring the kids. Like I had the baby. She was like a month old. And I wore the baby and we had the kids. And you bring snacks and wine and it's wonderful.
Oh,
but not just that. It is so compelling to me how good art can transcend generations. And of course the music is perfect and compelling, but also the story of like family and faith. And it is fascinating to me now 2 years in a row, and Sound of Music has long been my favorite musical. But how 2 years in a row you're sitting in Los Angeles at the Hollywood Bowl with, LGBTQ people and minorities and families
and Christians
and everyone is singing the words of Climb Every Mountain and cheering the Mother Superior as she talks about the importance of God and love and the messages of that and good versus evil and all of these things that every single time I watch the movie I think I get something new out of it, and I'm like, wow, thank God that in a way this art and what you guys do is so important, because you can have messages that are appealing to people that I think that also are just biblical and right and true.
Can I tell you another message that's in that film? And at my wedding, I quoted a piece of poetry to talk about my mother, which I'll talk about another day. But I also quoted a song from The Sound of Music to describe how happy I was to be marrying this one. And it was, somewhere in my youth or childhood, I must have done something good. Because here you are standing there loving me. I do love him, and it's great. And I think love is great, and I think marriage is something we should talk about another day, because I actually think there's nothing better than a good marriage.
Yeah,
it's like a miracle. And young ones should be. Every time I meet a young one, I'm always saying to young ones, "Are you dating? Who are you seeing? And if you're not meeting somebody, you need to get professional help." And honestly, no, I do. Yeah. I say basically it's more serious than cancer. If you had cancer, you'd go to a doctor. Yeah. Don't be casual about it. But anyway, that's
finding a good life partner. Can we come back and do a podcast about relationships?
Yes,
and parenting and like just
and you know
life.
What we'll do? Can I just say, and the girls are listening here, can I just say, and Rick is interested too.
I'll be sick
Can
that
I
day.
also say, we'll have a glass of wine and we'll discuss that.
I will Uber over so we can just share a bottle.
There we go. Okay, we would like this has been fabulous. We've come to the end of the show,
week.
and I know. And next week, we'll be coming from Westminster. We'll be broadcasting
Westminster,
from Westminster,
not Westminster, LA. Westminster
in London. We're doing our Brexit show.
We're doing our Brexit show.
Brexit podcast from London. So we will be talking to you then.
Will Brexit have happened? We don't know.
We still don't know.
I don't think Boris Johnson knows either.
Boris Johnson doesn't know, but we're going to be there and talking to some great people. We're going to be talking to Claire Fox, the MEP, the Brexit MEP, and we're also going to be talking to John Waters, the Irish writer, who also has something to say about the backstop.
And whatever guests happen to pop in.
And whatever other guests come. And I think I may have to bring a beer for that, a British beer, or at least, and I think we'll do some, we'll talk to some people on the street and in the pubs in London about their reaction to what's happening over there. So until the next time, thank you so much.
All the best.
Bye-bye. And thank you so much, Elisha.
Thank
we
you,
really
Elisha.
appreciate having you. It was just great. We're totally doing this again.
Okay.
Bye.